welcome to Jassé in the Jeep. Today I will be doing part 2 of life cycles. I got a lot of questions last week from my first message that I did on life cycles, and so we're just going to go just a little bit deeper into that so that you can fully understand what a life cycle is. So get in, buckle up, and let's take a ride. So like I said, this is going to be part 2 of life cycles. Last week I was explaining that life cycles a lot of times is just situations so that you can better grow into the person that you are while you're here on earth. At church you may hear people say trials and tribulations, or you may hear people say generational curses, things like that. It's all relative. So basically a life cycle is something that you're going to keep experiencing until you learn from that situation. Some people have life cycles of just feeling loneliness, constantly feeling like they're lonely. Growing up, they felt like people weren't around for them. They couldn't, their parents weren't really there for them. Like their life has just been this kind of lonely space. And then they take that on as they grow up and go into the world, and then they become more of like a cold person, or they don't know why. And it's not until you figure out, oh, okay, the reason I'm this way is because I was raised this certain way, or I lived my life this way, and now that I have this information of why I'm a cold individual or why I'm not so open to people, it goes back to just the way I was raised. That's like a life cycle. That's something that's going to keep repeating itself until you figure out, okay, I know what the root cause is and I know what I want to do to fix it. So basically that's all it is a very simple concept. Now, how do you figure out what your life cycle is? I think everybody comes into that understanding on their own. Sometimes it might be an aha moment where you're like, oh, okay, that's it. Or maybe you've been going to counseling, or maybe you've been talking to a friend, and then they say, wow, you said X, Y, and Z 2 months ago, and it seems like this situation is kind of similar. When you start to find situations that are very similar in lessons or experiences, then you can say, oh, okay, I can put 2 and 2 together, and I can, say that that's possibly a life cycle. So I say that to say everybody comes to their understanding of their life cycles themselves. I don't think there's one way. There's not one right way. There's not one lesson in life. There's multiple lessons, but the benefit is, if not for nothing, is just taking the time to work within yourself to be a better person. And if you don't call it life cycles, you can call it whatever. You can call it just situations that you're living in your life. If you just sit and stop for a moment to say, how can I take this negative situation and learn from it? That's all it's that simple. Just doing that simple self-reflection inward can help to grow you into being just a more well-rounded individual. So for instance, I've been kind of holding back on some situations that are very personal to me, only because I enjoy all of you guys coming in and asking me questions, but some things I just feel like I want to kind of just hold for myself. Last week I used the example of always feeling a little agitated or frustrated when people are asking me for help. And I realized that if I'm here to be help to another individual or help to a family member, then something so simple on a small scale shouldn't frustrate me if I want to do it on a larger scale in life. So basically that is the example. Now, working through these life cycles or life lessons or whatever. Hey, thank you for joining in. I got a message last week from my girlfriend saying, I know what my life cycle is. My counselor has already told me, but this is just how I live my life. And you will find a lot of people that will say, this is just me. This is who I am. It's I'm too old to change. It's just all these different excuses. And I find that when we are so stuck in our situations like that, or we're so stuck in our mind frame, our thought process, that's when we don't grow. That's when that it's almost like saying, you know what, I'm not, like if a new system comes out and you're like, you know what, I'm not learning Excel 2.5. I know how to do this. Then life is going to move on, and you're going to be stuck in that same situation, in that same wondering, oh, woe is me, why does this always happen to me? It's that same, it's like playing a song on repeat, insanity, just doing the same things. And so I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to say, definitely do the work. But all I'm saying is that if you sit and do the work, you will see that life is so much easier. There's things that used to frustrate me, or things that I will say when I feel that kind of emotion coming up. I'm like, Jassé, if you've learned the lesson, this really shouldn't bother you, or you should have a new way to work through this situation. And truly, that's all it is. It's almost checking yourself so that you can have a better life, or learn how to deal in negative situations better than you are dealing with them at this time. So it's just opening your mind up, opening yourself up to different opportunities, and realizing that we don't have all the answers. There's a lot of times where things bother us, things frustrate us. We don't know why it is that way, but we do know that how we respond to an action is all on us. If I decide that I'm not going to be angry about the situation, I'm not going to be upset, I'm going to be a more happy person, jovial person, or maybe I have to remove myself from this situation. Whatever it takes to break the cycle is what's going to stop it from happening. So it's just like a lesson. If you were in school, as soon as you pass that test, then there's a new lesson. If you don't pass that test, then God's going to keep giving you that same lesson over and over and over again. And then you're going to say, why is this happening to me? All I'm saying is study for the test, take the test, and break the cycle. It sounds simple. It's not. Believe me, it is work, but it can be done. So in these last few months that I've been, I guess, kind of doing like my own soul work, I will say there's been some frustrations and there's been some peaks. It's definitely like an up and down. I'm not better than anybody. I still get angry at all the same things. I know when my mom sees this, she's gonna be like, like, but there's a change. So I'm sure she would say that I can see growth in my child. She can see where I've become more spiritual, where I lean on God more, where I pray more, where I meditate more, where I do all these things and I work on myself. And then she will also say that I know that Jassé hasn't figured this out, but I can tell that she's working on it. And that's all it is. Just take your time to work on your hardships in life. Don't bottle it up. Don't put your emotions to the side, because eventually what happens is it's going to become clutter. So if you start to just push things aside, I'll deal with it when I deal with it, or I don't want to deal with it, those things are just going to sit in the side. Just like if it's home and you do laundry and you don't want to wash the clothes and you just sit it to the side, it's going to start to pile up. And so a lot of times our outside matches our inside. When we are walking around frustrated, when we are quick to anger, when we are just negative in thoughts and intentions and actions with other people, a lot of times all that is what's going on within us. Maybe there's something that we feel negative about ourselves that's going on, or negative in our situation. Maybe there's something that's angering us that we can't even necessarily pinpoint to say, this is what's bothering me. A lot of people we know what's bothering us, but we don't have the right words to say this is bothering me, or we don't want to say that this is bothering me because we don't want to seem like we can't handle our situation. But in all honesty, everyone every day needs some form of help, some form of guidance, some form of just encouragement, just something. And if that encouragement or guidance can't come from inside, then I urge you to speak to somebody else. Speak with your counselor, speak with a friend, speak with the pastor. Do something so that you can just get the soul cleansing out, so that you can live a more abundant life so that you can just be on a better path to a better person, truly and honestly. It's like, what's the example I use? The clutter example. Your inside reflecting your outside. So I have a way of saying, I don't want to talk about it. If something's going on, you know what, I don't want to talk about it. I'll talk about it later. And sometimes that later never comes. There are people that I wish I had conversations with that are gone now, that I didn't have the conversation because I just, at that time, I just didn't want to deal with it. And so now I'm left with this, well, what happens? You know, I don't have the answer. And it's a situation that you never want to be in. If you have the chance to truly get your feelings out with somebody, to truly say, this is how I'm feeling, to say, can you help me, whatever, do it. Do it, because if not for nothing, you're helping yourself. You're helping yourself be a better person. You don't have to be negative. You don't have to attack the individual. But if you feel like there is a life cycle going on with you, and for you to break that, you have to speak to someone else, then find the time to do it. If you can't, something my therapist said to do, write a letter. Write it all out. Write all your feelings out. And if you don't want to give it to that individual, when you're done, rip it up or burn it. Release that energy. It has to go somewhere. But don't hold it and harbor it within yourself. Because one thing I can tell you, that situation is going to come up again. It might not come up with that person. It might not come up that year or next year, but it's going to definitely come up again if you feel like that lesson, or if God feels like that lesson has not been learned. So that's part 2 of life cycles, working through the cycles, just making sure that you don't hide from it, that you try to figure out what it is, you pinpoint it, and you decide to work on it. And it's not something that's just going to go away right away, because it is a touchy subject for you. It's a hot point. And so you just have to kind of work through it, slowly work through it. If it's not, you pray on it and say, you know, I know that this is an issue that I have. I want to be a better person. I don't want to deal with this. Show me the way to better myself through this situation. Do all of those things. But the worst thing that you can possibly do is to just leave it there and let it sit lingering. Don't do that. Don't harbor negative emotions in your body. Don't. There was a scene last week or 2 weeks ago on This Is Us, and it was so perfect, where the grandmother was talking to her granddaughter, and she was like, you know, when I was younger, I used to be quicker and move faster, and I started to bottle up my emotions, and now I have all these aches and pains. And she was basically telling her grandchild, like, don't hold on to your feelings. Don't hold on to negative emotions, because it's going to show up in your body in another way. And that's all I'm saying. If you want to live a happy life, if you want to be a support for someone else, you want to be a support for yourself, you have to do your own inner work so that you can be there for someone else. Don't hold on to those negative emotions. Don't allow people to steal your joy. And definitely, I know it sounds cliche, but do the work. Do your own work so that you can be a better person. You know yourself better than anybody else. No one can tell you what really truly is the problem unless you start to talk about it. So even if you go to a therapist, she's not going to say, oh, I know what your problem is, without you talking about your life situations and what you've learned and what you've gone through. After you explain all of those things, then she can piece the fragments together to say, oh, this is probably what you're dealing with. All I'm saying is you can start doing a lot of that yourself. And if for whatever reason you can't, then definitely seek out a therapist. That's it for part 2 of life cycles. If you guys have any questions, I see all these people are joining in now, and now I'm done. I'm trying to keep my messages short, so I'm sorry. Send me questions. Please send me questions. The question that I received this time was about how to break the life cycles. I think I'm going to do a part 3 session. I don't know what it's going to be about right now, but please keep sending me your questions. I truly love you guys. I'm not preaching. I'm just telling you guys how to try to live a better life. Namaste.